Chi, and I am here for our Saturday Stretch live Q&A. Now, hopefully you guys are all getting my emails, so you got your Saturday Stretch this week in your email inbox. If you didn't, check in with me, and we'll get you signed up for that, okay? Excuse me. Allergies, right? It's that time of year. So today I was thinking that it would be fun to kind of break down yoga and how to really enhance your yoga practice using resistance stretching. Like you really can love yoga for if you use the principles of resistance stretching in the right way. And this goes even for people who are like, Tommy just jumped in, I don't know if you saw him. This even goes for people who have tried yoga and have a terrible experience with it. Like people who are like, I hate yoga, it's awful. Well, sometimes the problem is that you're approaching yoga like a person who does yoga, but sometimes you're a beginner and you need a little bit of guidance. You need a little bit of a middle ground, right? And resistance stretching is a really amazing middle ground for yoga, for like approaching yoga. So I thought what we would do today is I have this deck of yoga cards that I got on Amazon, yoga exercise cards. That's by New Me Fitness. If you are interested in those at all, I mean, it's just a deck of cards with yoga poses on it. And the reason why I like it is because I like to just challenge myself. So I just kind of like pick through a card and see what comes up and then go from there. Now, for those of you who are watching online, be sure to say hi, tell me where you're from. If you're jumping in after the fact, scroll ahead, because if you're watching live and not like behind the time, like if you're actually watching physically live, then you can ask me questions. You also need to be a subscriber of the channel to ask questions, so make sure that you subscribe, okay? All right. There's one other thing that I wanted to share with you guys before we get started. I've started a new freebie that I think you guys are gonna love. It's an assessment. And the assessment is here. And so you just, I just put it in the chat. It's a free assessment. Basically what you do is sign up for that assessment. It's a video, two videos actually, a lower body and an upper body video with some worksheets. And you use the worksheets, and in that I tell you how to interpret the signals that your body is giving you. And then from there, you can send me your assessment and we'll schedule a little phone call, or we'll talk over email, whatever's more comfortable for you. And from there, I can tell you a little bit more about what's going on in your body and what the next steps are. It's a really interesting way to see what your body's telling you. And I know those of you who have been following me for a while know that it's not enough just to do a stretch and to think like, oh, that's a stretch, right? The stretch is actually a communication device that your body is using. Like we stretch so that we can figure out what we need and what we want. And most of the time, the best stretch that you can do for your body is the one that feels the best, not the one that feels the worst. And so what we need to do is find the ones that feel the best, figure out which ones feel the worst, and then problem solve through those so that we can make those bad stretches feel good, like good stretches. And that's what I help you figure out in the assessment, okay? So click that link and download the assessment and then check in with me and we'll go over it together, okay? All right, so the card that I picked up, this is actually a really hard stretch for me, wide angle seated bend. In Sanskrit, it looks like that, but I'm not even gonna say it because I don't speak that language, unfortunately. So what we're looking for is a really deep inner hamstring stretch, right? And the ability to fold at your hips. And so if we look at resistance stretching, we say, well, gosh, there's no way I'm getting into that position. But I can tell you that if you approach this with the rules of resistance stretching, you can get into the position that your body appreciates for that stretch. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so let me switch the camera there. Let me get rid of my fancy graphic. Isn't that so cool? I know, I just feel like I feel so fancy. Look, isn't that fancy? It's so fancy. Now, here's the thing that I want to tell you guys too, that's part of the assessment. In resistance stretching, we work through like step ladder goals. So the first goal is that you want to make sure that you feel really safe. The second would be to actually learn the stretch, like figure out how to do it in the best way possible. The third step up the ladder is to problem solve, because a lot of times you have barriers and you need to figure out where those barriers are and how to get rid of them. And it's actually pretty simple to do, but you can't do it unless you know the stretches and you feel safe, right? And then from there, you start building yourself up. So that's gaining more flexibility, gaining more strength, get more range of motion, more mobility overall. That's the build up stage. And then the body awareness stage is making sure that you're able to use your body in the most efficient way in everyday life. So that's the kind of the last stage here of growth. And then ultimately, when all your barriers are removed, then you are at the performance stage. And that's when life gets real good. Not life gets real good before that, but it's definitely like, that's the stage where like you are at your best performing self. So if you're a golfer, you're playing golf at the best place. If you're a swimmer, you're swimming at the best. If you're playing with your kids or your grandkids, or if you're dancing or whatever, you're at your best self at that point. All right, my friends, so let's dive into this wide angle seated bend. Now, the first thing we want to do is find a place where you feel safe, right? So in this, basically what we're going to do is we're going to go wide legged, and then we're going to come down. Now, this is a problem area. So in this place today, I never warm up before our live Q&A. So I am like right where I am. I feel about here is where I want to be right now. And that's okay, because I don't mind having tight muscles here, right? So they're going to open up over time, and it could show me and expose to me where I have some barriers and stuff, okay? So here's how you do it. First, sit on the floor, right? Remember, the first step of the ladder is to feel safe. So do you feel safe sitting on the floor? Yeah? If not, sit up against the wall, right? And find a place where you feel comfortable here, okay? That's it, right? That's all you need. Now, the next thing would be to bring your legs out in front of you. Do you feel safe there, right? And then open up as wide as you can at that point. Find a place where you feel safe, okay? If you cannot straighten your legs out all the way, then it would be safe to bend your knees like this. That would be okay. You can put bolsters under them. That would be all right. You just want to find a place where you feel really safe, okay? So a lot of times we're doing a yoga pose or something, and we really try to like stretch and like really push ourselves into position and really try to get down there and like hang out in a place where it feels really bad. But your body will not respond well to pain, okay? Your body does not respond well at all to feeling forced into something or aggressively pushed, right? You want to make sure that your body feels really safe. So find this position, make sure that you're okay, all right? And then the second stage of this stretch is to reach your arms out and fold at your hips to come forward and see how far that goes, okay? I'm about here. That's about where my body wants to go with my legs straight. And at this point, I'm noticing what my body's telling me. So I feel a stretch through my inner hamstrings, which is good. That's exactly where it should be. When I get stuck at this point, I kind of feel a little bit through my upper back, but it's mostly here that's stopping me. So take a second and recognize what's stopping you in this stretch. Is it your inner thighs? Is there pain in your hips? Is there pain in your outer hips here? Is there pain in your back? Do your feet hurt? Like what is hard about this stretch for you? And then see if you can find the place where you definitely feel safe. Okay, I'm here, I'm not in pain. There's no problem. I start to feel a stretch about here, that's about it. Okay, so the next stage would be to actually learn the stretch. So in this stretch, if I want to add resistance, then I want to kick my heels down, almost like I was going to pull them in this way. Okay, so when I kick my heels down, I might even go ahead and bend there at my waist, right? And then the other part of the stretch is to bend forward into that stretch, okay? So if I've got my legs contracted here, a little bit of bend there, definitely some contraction through my inner thighs, and then reaching forward into the stretch as far as I can go, slowly, with resistance in my legs, and then I'm going to use my legs to try to push me back up, you see? And you just go back and forth just like this. So I'm coming down into the stretch, and then I'm going to use my legs. I'm pushing my heels into the ground to push me back up. Okay, so I'm real active through here the whole time. Only go as far as feels like a good stretch. I'm not pushing myself into a scary place. I'm only going into a place that feels really good. All right? So you just go back and forth like that. Now that might be enough for you. Okay? That might be it. Because that might be the stage that you're at. Just feeling safe, learning to stretch. That's it. But the next step, the next stage is problem solving. And this is a really cool aspect of resistance stretching. So to problem solve this muscle group, we want to go to the opposite side. So instead of stretching the inner thigh here, we want to stretch the outer hip here with resistance, because a resistance stretch actually teaches your body how to fold more than it teaches it how to stretch. Okay, that's like the big benefit of resistance stretching. And it's kind of a big like, what? To people there, it like blows their mind. They're like, wait a second. But flexibility, if you break it down, the word flexibility, it actually means the ability to bend or fold without breaking. Okay, it doesn't have anything to do, like when we're doing this stretch, it doesn't have anything to do with this muscle getting longer as much as it has to do with bending here at your hips without breaking when you bend, right? That's the important thing. So let's go ahead and do a little problem solving. And remember, you can always chime into the chat, say hi, let me know you're here, and ask questions if you feel like you have any. And it doesn't even have to be about what we're doing. You can ask me questions about anything related to flexibility or wellness in general, okay? All right, so here's the really easy stretch. You just lay on your back, take your right leg and bring it off your mat so it's kind of angled out a little bit. And the movement of this stretch is going to be to come down with your knee towards the mat and up this way. So it's a little bit of a back and forth like this, all right? Now I want to add resistance. I'm going to use my other foot. So I'm going to take my left foot and hook it on top of my knee so that my knee and my foot can give resistance to each other, okay? And then for this stretch, I'm going to use my left leg to pull my knee down, but I'm still resisting with my right leg. So there's a fight between the two legs. Keep your hips on the floor so you're not rolling over. It's not a back stretch, it's a hip stretch. And I go into my stretch and then I push right back up, okay? So you just go back and forth just like this. And as long as you're resisting and moving in a range that feels good to you and safe, you'll be fine and you'll start to problem solve whatever's going on in the inner thighs, okay? So you just go up and down. Super simple, basic stretch. It's kind of for the top of your quads. It's for a muscle called the sartorius muscle, which is a hip flexor, but related to the quad group. And so it's a really helpful one. It's really, really helpful. Sorry, you gotta come here. Come on here, puppy. Hi. Hi. She's so helpful in the stretches. I just bought them. It was my birthday this week. So for my birthday, I bought talking buttons for the cats. Have you guys seen those online? It's like a TikTok thing. There's this dog called Bunny. And the dog like hits the buttons and says like food or like, I mean the dog says like super funny things. Like it said something about like how it wanted a bird in its belly or something. It was really funny. So anyway, it's a story of Tommy. Hopefully soon we'll be able to talk to me. So now let's do the other side. Take your left leg and bring it to the outside of your mat. Take your right leg and hook it over your left leg. Give some resistance there. And then remember that this motion is to pull down, pulling your knee down towards the mat while your left leg is still kicking up. All right, you just go up and down in the way that feels the best to you. Well, this stretch was needed and I didn't really know. That's the best thing about the assessment, you guys, is that usually our body kind of tricks us into thinking like, oh, we have pain here, or we have pain here, and not noticing where we actually have issues. Like I had no idea. I was thinking that all my problems were from like my right shoulder or something, and then I did the assessment and realized that I had left shoulder problems and right hip problems. And so it's really interesting. It's kind of a like a translator for your body. So cool. So you just go up and down. Remember to resist and move the whole time. It's not a lot of resistance. Like I'm still talking to you. I'm moving easy. It's not complicated, right? And I don't feel scared. So I'm not moving into a place where my body feels like it needs to protect itself, okay? Let's do one more. All right. And now, if we go to our stretch again, just real basic, because we just did some problem solving, you might notice that you open up a little bit more. Like I feel a little more open. I'm gonna kick my heels down into the mat because that's where I get my resistance stretch. And then I'm gonna reach forward. And you can see there, my range of motion has already increased even more than what it was before. And I'm just gonna move in and out of the stretch. I'm not gonna hold it, right? There's no point in holding the stretch. The stretch is actually happening during the movement. Like it's happening right now, and it's happening right now, and it's happening right now, and here it's done. So I'm gonna get out of that stretch. I'm just gonna keep going back and forth. Now there's also a possibility that the muscles on the outer side of your hips are a problem too. And this stretch was actually the stretch of the week this week. So you may wanna check out that video. It's for low back pain, it helps with sciatica, it's a really fantastic stretch, so you should try it out. It's actually really easy to try because you can do that stretch on a chair. But I'm using the chair for my computer, so I'm gonna show you a different way to do it today. So you just lay on your back, and you bring your right leg in close, take your left arm and cross it over your body. So you're crossing over your shin and grabbing the outside of your foot. And then you just turn it in a little bit. Now you could use a rope for this if you need to, or whatever feels good. And you just go up and down just like this. So you kick down for strength and up for stretch. It's a great stretch for low back pain. It just really loosens up that entire posterior fascial line. And when we're thinking about the stretch that we were doing before, that wide open forward fold, that one's for the hamstring stretch that stretches you like this, and this one stretches you like this, okay? So it's like we're approaching the stretch from the side. So it's all about balance. It's about balancing your body northeast, south, and west, right? Or in this case, it's more of a diagonal, so it's like northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest, right? So we're getting all of these different points of the compass balanced out. All right, and let's switch sides. So here, I've got my left leg, pull it up, take my right leg and come down, grab the heel or the outside of your foot, and then turn your knee in towards your elbow so you can get this diagonal stretch across your body. Now you want resistance, right? So you're gonna kick down with your heel and then pull up with your arm. And you just go back and forth just like this. Down for strength, then up for stretch. And this is a pretty amazing way to problem solve that inner hamstring stretch because, again, it's like a cross pattern, right? It's like the outer part of the circle. And ideally, we want everything to be perfectly balanced. We talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago. I missed last week because I was sick, but I think 2 weeks ago we talked about, jumping around. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the idea of your center of gravity being inside your body. And what ends up happening when your posture gets bad is your center of gravity becomes like outside of your body. So like if you're sitting at your desk like this, all hunched over and typing on your computer, then your center of gravity is kind of hovering somewhere in here. So your body is reacting by trying to balance itself over your center of gravity. But when you stretch and you get everything loosened up, then your center of gravity comes back and back and back. And as your center of gravity comes back and then into your chest or into your core even, you become more balanced and you sit up straight naturally. It happens naturally. But you can't do that just by reminding yourself to sit up straight. You actually can fix where your center of gravity is landing, right? So you do that with resistance stretching, all these points on the compass, you see? It's so important, so important. So since we problem solved a bit, let's go back. So go ahead and open your legs up as wide as you feel safe. Your arms up in front. You're gonna kick your heels down into the floor and then fold forward. And you should notice that you feel a little bit different, right? Maybe a little safer in a deeper range of motion, a deeper stretch, a little easier to do, less fear, right? It's a good one, right? And so in this one, in a yoga class, your yoga teacher is probably really flexible. Other people in class might be really flexible, and they just dive right into this. They just dive right into this bend, right? But that's not always possible for everybody. Yoga for me has never been that kind of thing because maybe there's structural differences or something where I've never been able to fold forward like that. But with this, I know that I'm getting a good stretch because I can feel the stretch in the exact right place that I'm supposed to be feeling it. And so that's really cool. So now that everything's open, working in the right way, we've problem solved, then that's when build up becomes the next stage of the ladder. So let me show you that ladder again so you can see. So you see, we've just hit this problem solving. So we've worked through as much as we can. Now there might still be some other things. Like I was feeling some stuff in my lats, like coming from my upper body. So that's really interesting. But then to go to the build up stage, we want to kind of question what that means for us. So like, do you want to gain more flexibility? Do you want to gain more strength? They kind of actually work hand in hand. So that's pretty cool. So instead of doing that forward leg fold, maybe the next step would be to do some hamstring stretches. Like once everything's balanced out, then maybe you start with like this one I like to call happy baby. So from here, I kick down and then I can pull up into that wide leg stretch and build my flexibility from there. And I can go back and forth like that, building strength. Oh, I hate knees. I hope you can't hear those. They're like crack. So I would use resistance stretching to build up my strength and flexibility. Now from this position, my back is already straight, so I'm kind of in a good place. And then you can also stretch your fascia, which is really fun. So from here to stretch my fascia, I would go into a place where my knees are bent, but I'm at the end of my stretch, and then I just kick my heels up towards the ceiling, nice and slow, to try to straighten my knees out. So from bent knees to relatively straight knees, but still resisting, I can get more fascia. So here I'm in the build-up stage, building flexibility, building strength in a safe way that feels good to me. You don't have to push through painful stretches to get results. And so I would just do my build-up just like this, or like what we do in class. And then maybe I have a little bit more range of motion, right? It doesn't really matter because at this point, I don't care so much about having like that deep range of motion to get all the way to the floor to be able to do the yoga pose. What I care about is my body function in the best way possible. Because the next step then is to become more body aware, to know that I'm using these muscles in the right way when I'm doing everyday life kind of things. This muscle group actually helps us to like get up and down out of a squat, like going backwards, walking backwards, running backwards. It kind of helps us with that like retreating action. So if you're in a sporting event and you have to run backwards, like say you play soccer or lacrosse or ultimate frisbee or I don't know, whatever you could play, right? It's anything in dodgeball. That's another one where, you know, people are always like kind of running backwards, but you have to keep your eye forward. It's a lot of sports actually, then having that really strong would be really helpful for you because you'd have that springiness in your step to be able to do that. It's also really great for dancers, martial artists, that kind of thing, okay? So those are really helpful. And then once you have that body awareness where you know that you can use those muscles in the right way, then you can perform in your best way possible, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. It's pretty cool stuff. So that being said, we're almost out of time, but I do want to try this stretch one more time now that I've stretched out my fascial lines because that does make a difference. Yeah, that's something different. feels better, right? So this is all we do. And it literally is like a half hour's worth of time, right? Like that's it. And I mean, that was a half hour of me talking and also a half hour of stretching, but pretty cool stuff. So if anyone out there has any questions, feel free to put those in the chat right now. I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we will head out. I do want to just remind you to sign up for that free assessment. I'll put that back in the chat one more time. There it is. And then if you haven't checked out today's stretch of the day, then you could check that out too. Let me get you the link for that one. This is on YouTube. It's also on Facebook and Instagram and all the things. But on YouTube, it'd be really, click on that one. It would be really easy because you have the link right there. Okay. Let's see. No questions today, huh? Well, that's all right. You guys come at me with your questions in the future. I'm happy to answer them. I mean, as always, I got lots of answers. And I'm excited about the assessment. So you guys check it out and try the assessment, go through it, and then send me your results so that we can talk through them. Okay. It's also a little bit of research for me. I'm not going to lie. I'm trying to figure out if there are very specific patterns for different people. So even if you're like, I don't really care what my assessment says, like if you're interested in resistance stretching and moving forward, please do the assessment, especially if I have a whole slew of clients who have chronic pelvic pain syndrome. I'm really interested in seeing if there are any patterns specific for people who have chronic pelvic pain. I think I know, but myself, like from my experience with clients, what has come up, but I would really be interested to see what the assessments show. Okay, so please take that assessment and send it over to me. All right. Okay, my friends, that's it for today. Enjoy your Saturday, and I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.